Hello and welcome back. In this short lecture, we're going to learn about how to restrict Windows Phone 8.1 and above configurations. For example, you want to block camera or copy and paste or remove all storages, or maybe password settings you want to apply, or some kind of applications from the App Store, or some kind of applications to be restricted, or the browser settings, or maybe a cellular connectivity configurations. All these kind of settings can be configured by creating profiles. Let's navigate to Microsoft Intune and device configuration. Right click here and create a new profile and give a meaningful name and a description. And in this case, I'm giving Windows 8.1 phone profile APAC region. And let's point to platform type as Windows Phone 8.1. And once you choose here, you have here almost 7 different settings. To begin with, we can go and configure for the device restrictions, which would give the general settings along with that password, app store, as well as restricted applications, browser, and cellular connectivity. If you can remember on Windows 10 devices, where we have configured here for Windows 10 and later, similar settings we also got it here. I mean, similar categories, I would put it in that way. And let's point to the general, and in the general you have the camera. If you want to block the camera on Windows 8.1 phones, then you can simply block it. And copy paste, you want to block it, or removable storage, all that configurations can be blocked or not to configure. When you say not to configure, you're not doing anything. That means whatever the by default on the phone, that settings would be applied. Here geography, geolocation can be applied. And Microsoft accounts, you want to add the Microsoft account or you don't want to add. And similarly, the screen capturing, like somebody has to take the photo, then it's not gonna allowed if you choose as a block. Similarly, share users data as well as the custom email sync is blocked. These are the configurations can be available in the general. And let's point to the passwords. In the passwords, basically, when you enable the passwords, you're gonna apply some kind of settings which are more explicitly you're allowing the device to be more securely configured with your password, like a complex password or maybe easy password. Let's have a look on it. Required password type, alphanumerical or device, or maybe a device default, or maybe numerical. So most of the time the companies will prefer to go for alphanumerical because that's a more complex password. And the minimum of the alphanumerical should be 4, and you can give here the minimum password length, or maybe you can give as 8 characters. And if you want to block for the simple password, you can block it, and it has a pattern to identify the simple passwords like 1 2 3 4. Such things are blocked. If you can see here the information on that specific setting, and number of sign-in failures before the wiping the device. Let's say the device is in hand of unauthorized person, and if he's trying for more than 4 times, you want to block it. You can do that configuration by choosing here 4. And the inactivity of the device, like a device was open, unlocked, and how many minutes it's gonna wait until it's going to be locked. That configuration is nothing but here maximum minutes of inactivity until screen locks. You can configure here like 1 minute or 5 minutes, so you can configure that specific setting. And the password expansion, or for the maybe you can configure as every 30 days the password must be changed. That configuration can be configured here. And the prevent reuse of the same passwords again and again, that's nothing but your passwords history. You can configure here as saying that hey, you shouldn't repeat it more than 5 times. Such configuration can be configured under passwords. Similarly, you have the option for the encryption. If you want to encrypt the device, you can do that configuration from here and click on OK and go back to the App Store, and you can block if you don't want allow to install anything from the App Store. You can block it so that nothing can be installed from the App Store. You're blocking the App Store since so that users can't use the App Store. Be sure that you know what you're trying to do, otherwise it would lead to the other confusion for the end users. Now let's go back and check restricted application. So some of the applications can be also you can configure as a block applications, and you can import that specific application, or you can add that specific URL or the application name or publisher name, so that that specific applications will be blocked. You can find this information from one of the test phone by installing that application and find out what exactly that URL is accessing, and the application name and publisher name. That way you can block it, but you need to have that inventory information. If you don't have that kind of inventory information, you can't configure such configurations. Now let's go back to other configuration, which is a browser settings. Now you can configure browsers, web browsers, whether you want to block it some kind of web browser. Let's say by default, if it is a Windows device, definitely Internet Explorer. You want to block it, you can block that web browser so that users can't use any, they conserve, basically they conserve internet. And now let's go to cellular and connectivity. These are most of the settings relevant to the manufacturer settings, which are offering some kind of features for us. Let's say the Wi-Fi connectivity, or maybe NFC or the Bluetooth connectivity. Do you want to allow those kind of configuration? You can configure here. Let's jump into the each of the configuration. Like if you're allowing for the Wi-Fi configuration, you can set it as not configured, but if you want to block it, you can block the Wi-Fi configuration so that that specific Windows 8.1 devices, phone devices can't use the specific settings. And similarly, hotspot, Wi-Fi hotspot, and Wi-Fi threatening, and automatically connect to the Wi-Fi hotspots which are available locally. And NFC, this NFC near field communications technology also can be used, or you want to block it, you can simply block that technology so that the payments maybe can't be done. Or similarly, the Bluetooth configuration also can be done. Let's click on OK. Whatever the settings you have configured, now you can configure these specific settings. If you are going to the profile type as email, this is nothing but configuring your email server, which we have done in our Windows 10 devices. Configuration similar settings, like you should be giving the email server name, that mostly the IP address or the name or FQGN of your mail server, and account name, and as well as the attribute from the Azure AD, or it's going to be a UPN name or SMTP primary address or SAM account name. So that the specific with this specific settings, automatically the email accounts can be configured by using these values. And you can configure whether your email server is required SSL, and also email account synchronization. You want to do it, if so what is the frequency, and what is the schedule time. By default you want to configure for 15 minutes, or based on uses you can set either minutes of the time, or can be chosen as based on my uses. And also connect type to sync, so you want to choose to sync like contacts, calendars, tasks. All these configurations also can be synced. These settings we talked about in Windows 10 devices, very similar settings. These are for the email profile. And also for the trusted certificate, we did talk about it earlier in the Windows 10 and Windows 8.1 later devices. Also similar settings here is nothing but your certificate file .cer file or cert file, which you want to import as a trusted certificate to your devices. You can do that from here. Similarly, you can configure if you have the other certificates like SIP certificate, or maybe here you can see here the set certificate can be configured very similarly what we talked about in other category of device configurations, like PKCN. You can do the similar configuration. There's nothing much here to talk about, because we talked about all these settings earlier. The most important one would be the maybe a VPN settings. Like if you want to configure your mobile devices to be automatically connected to your VPN server, you can very well do that by configuring your basic VPN type. But you don't have here for the enterprise level of VPN configuration, but it's as similar as that. Like you can give here connection name, and you can give the authentication method, whether it's going to be certificate based or it's going to be user and password. And the server configuration, you can give it here, like the whatever the configuration you wanna put it, like your VPN server, like VPN 1 server if you give here, and whatever the IP like 109.21.1.2. If that's a server, you can give this is the my public IP, or you can give the FQDN name also. If you want to configure to the VPN 2 as the next order for the dialing, if 1.2 down, then you can dial to 1.3. Similar configuration can be done, so that the default would be this. Automatically it's going to be set it here. If you set it as a default, it's going to dial to this. Later point, it's going to be configured for VPN2. And similar configuration here also, like what kind of VPN server is your other end. Let's say, do you have the checkpoint server or Sonic Wall Firewall or F5 Access or Pulse Secure, so that the server knows that what kind of inputs to be asked, and it would automatically negotiate with the client, because the client will have that kind of engine automatically by configuring those specific settings. Now you can configure all these like DNS configuration and XML file. If you have the XML file, which is for the split tunneling related information, if you want to enable, you can enable that configuration from here. These settings are very similar, which we have configured for Windows 10 devices. Now we also getting for 8.1 phone related settings. These are, so if you are using those devices, you can click on OK and give the required configuration inputs and simply say OK. That would automatically gives the configuration here, and that would enable this VPN configuration on all those machines. Like I can give here VPN like 1, and then click OK. That would configure the VPN. But sometimes during the VPN, you may have to configure your proxies also. Like you can configure your pack file, or maybe just the IP address and the port number of your internal proxy server IP, such so that it can automatically you can browse that specific you can use that specific proxy to browse those websites. And similarly, you can also configure here the automatically detect the proxy settings if you want, or you want to bypass some of the web traffic because the specific traffic is coming from your internal. Such configurations can be done from here, and you can enable those settings and click OK. That would automatically configure your proxy settings along with the VPN. Now we did talk about the VPN, and we did talk almost everything except the custom URI is OMA URI, which we talked about earlier in the Windows 10. You can refer that section because I don't want to repeat and the same thing and make these videos as much as lengthy for you. So it is the same setting, is the same configuration. You can do it, and you can refer that documentation which I have provided already with the Microsoft sites. These are the two documentation links which I have already provided in the Windows 10. If not, you can browse these URLs, and this will be published in the description of this video. Also, you can use those links to use them and browse it. And also this entire my Intune notes will be whatever I have used as a raw, that would be automatically saved, and it would be given you as in the resource section. Thank you for watching this.